Welcome to the very first episode of the Women Defining AI podcast. This podcast marks the start of something big. Women Defining AI is a community and a movement that aims to transform how technology is created by empowering women and non-binary folks to become builders, not just users of tech. We are at an incredible inflection point in our history where generative AI is really lowering the barrier to create tech exponentially. And so we are seizing this moment to diversify who shapes our future. Our goal with this podcast is simple. When more diverse voices build tech, it can do more good for the world. So our goal is to showcase those people and their work. My name is Julia Kapoor, and together with my co-hosts Sheena Miles and Dr. Becky Pauley, we're the voices and the ideas driving this podcast. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by the two co-founders behind Women Defining AI, Helen Kupp and Nichole Sterling. Helen and Nichole, thank you for being here, and thank you for giving us this platform.
Thanks for doing this.
That sounded so amazing.
I know. I'm so excited for this podcast.
Yeah. Amazing.
You know, a little help from AI, a little like finesse from me, but that was the intro. Yeah. Well, can you both introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about how Women Defining AI came to be?
Yeah, Helen said she wanted to go first.
Own the space, right? For more women to own the space. Okay, fine. My name is Helen Kupp. So I'm one of the founders of Women Defining AI. I've been in tech for quite a long time, from startups, like 20-person startups, all the way to Slack Salesforce sized, typically in a lot of operator roles, strategy, analytics, and a little bit of product. And Women Defining AI came to be during a time when, after leaving my last corporate job and wanting to take some time off, it was 2023 and we had seen the explosion of AI, but I had been interested in AI since the very beginning. One of my first tech companies that I joined, this tiny little startup that brought me up here to the Bay Area, was an AI company behind the scenes, pre-generative AI and all of that. So I always knew I wanted to get back hands-on, and I started exploring and experimenting. And it was right around the same time that, despite the popularity of generative AI, especially after ChatGPT launched, I was struggling to find peers who were women who were also exploring. It was really hard to find female voices with strong perspectives about this technology and how it was changing their work or how they were seeing products revolve around them. And the data showed the same thing. And so even though when we started this, we didn't really have this big plan for a large community or a movement, we just said we're already doing some of our own experimentation. We want to share what we are learning, and hopefully we can get at least a small group of women around us really excited and engaged in all of this. And quite honestly, I was very conservatively thinking that this would be, like a 5 to 10 person study group, because that was a thing that made sense in my head. 50 people raised their hand by the third day. We had nearly 150 people by the second or third month. And at that point, I think I turned to Nichole and I was like, we probably should figure out if we want to make this a thing. Maybe we should do a thing here. So that's actually how it was born.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Nichole Sterling. I've had vastly different areas that I have just poked around in over the course of my career. I've always been tech adjacent. Decided several years ago that I didn't want to work in the big enterprise companies anymore. I wanted to go more to the startups. And so that's where I've been for the past 10 years. And have taken on every role from HR to operations to finance to, product owner. And then I have these other facets of my life where I'm an elected official. I'm a mayor pro tem of a small town. And so the public sphere is interesting to me. Like, I got into it because I thought, they have cool problems to solve. Because clearly I'm a glutton for pain. And so I started to learn all the things that happen in our government and government services. And it's so much more complex than what meets the initial eye. And so just being the startup operator, being tech adjacent, and being in the public sphere is just where I've finally figured out where I want to be when I grow up, which is heading up a AI company built for the public sector. So, but the other things I would add on to how women defining AI came, I always tell the story because I just think it's so funny. It's almost poetic. The first time I actually saw Helen, we didn't actually talk. I saw her speak at a conference. It was for operators. And I thought, oh, she's cool. Like what she has to say. And I didn't actually go up and talk to her or anything. And then, but I connected with her on LinkedIn. And then it was probably not a month or a month and a half later, because I was having these same sort of thoughts in my head of, gosh, where are all the diverse voices around AI? When you're being tech adjacent, like my first AI project was over 10 years ago, in generative AI, and you immediately see just how much more accessible this is going to make AI for folks, for the general masses. And of course, you look around of all the channels, and there were no diverse voices. And so Helen's post came across my feed at one point on LinkedIn of like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about this idea. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's why I was supposed to connect with her. And so we did connect. I reached out to her. I said, hey, I just saw your post. Do you need help? She's like, yes, please. And so then we started connecting over, the course of those next couple of weeks. And it was 8 months later that we actually met for the first time. And by that point, we had already decided, oh, we have a thing and we should probably turn this into a formal thing. And, but yeah, it's a little bit more context on how women defining AI got started.
Very cool. Very cool. I love the serendipitous connection through LinkedIn. When you talk about this thing, folks who might be listening who aren't members of Women Defining AI might be wondering, well, what is this nebulous thing?
What is the thing? I think the aha moment for both Helen and I came when we did this lunch and learn back in 2023 around create your own custom chatbot. Helen had seen this one program for create your custom chatbot, and they wanted like $2,000 or something like that for it, right?
$2,000 during a year of insane layoffs, right?
Yeah.
Just to build an AI chatbot. This was pre-custom GPTs and all of that. It was kind of ridiculous. I was like, wow, this is a lot.
Right. And so she was kind of pissed off about it. She's like, we could do this, right? Could we do something like this? Is anybody interested? Would anybody want to? And so I said, yeah, actually, yeah, I think I'll take a go at this. And she messaged me on the side, and she says, well, should we bring in some engineering help? Like, should we ask somebody to help us from a coding perspective? And I was like, I don't know. Let me just take a weekend. And I did. I actually got it to work over the weekend, just by looking in forums, kind of looking at previous iterations of it. And when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, this isn't actually that scary, and it's actually not that hard. And so I messaged her on Monday, and I said, no, I got it to work. And she's like, wait, really? Yeah, we did. And then we went through an hour session where we taught other women. We had about 8 to 10 other women on the call, and we taught them how to build their own custom chatbot. And so it was at that moment where Helen and I were like, oh, like we could do this. We can take non-technical women, and we can really just unravel and peek inside this very black box that seems scary, and we can do this. And so it was at that point that we realized we had something, and it all centered around the Slack community is where we started with interactions and sharing ideas and sharing experiments. But then it was these lunch and learns where we would go a little bit deeper into a subject, either a demonstration or somebody figures something out, and then we had leaders, advisors folks that were just really hands-on in the community that could help us write community perspective papers and everything. And so when Helen says that this very much started as an experiment, it was like we were trying to figure out, what does this even turn into last year?
What do people want?
What do people want? Like, what are they actually going to pay attention to? What is going to be our main focus? And really what's come out of that is this idea that there's still going to always be, or there's still this bifurcation between men and women's usage of AI, women feeling like they're not technical enough, women feeling like they're cheating, and we've just found this niche of focusing on non-technical women and non-binary individuals, and that's a majority of the people in the world. There's a lot of them. And if we can gather their forces and show them actually it's not that scary, and you don't need to be technical, and no, this is not cheating, this is using a tool just like an Excel document, then we feel like we've hit and we can make a lot of progress with our work.
Yeah, I would say, so Women Defining AI is a virtual community, first and foremost, for a lot of different reasons. One, it was really about just making space for experimentation and questions and connecting women together. And at its very core, it's a virtual community. But what I would say is that, building on everything Nichole said, it's our attempt with community, with easy micro-learning programs, with our own experiments internally, to continue to push the boundaries of what women here think that they are capable of and what's possible. I'm always that person who's like, it's actually not that scary on the other side, and we'll take that step together. And figuring out, using a lot of our programming to figure out what is that on-ramp from I'm not sure yet, do I participate in AI, all the way to I'm pretty comfortable, I can speak confidently, and especially around decisions and important questions to ask. And then finally, all the way to the very end, which is kind of the holy grail of where we want to go eventually, is how do you transform that, not just from being confident about AI, but really truly defining the space and creating more female builders in the world. Nichole is like the shining example of exactly that, right? Found her co-founder in the community, started an AI tech company, and now is in the process of building for this space, which is, she's with that chatbot, Lunch and Learn, all the way to this, has walked the walk. And that's what this community really is. It's a lot of that, right? That on-ramp, that support system. And the really nice thing is that, honestly, for most of my career in consulting and in tech, I thought I was terrible at making female mentors, female friends, my personal board of directors. He was like, this is really hard and I'm terrible at it. I'm so introverted. I'm not that person who goes out and goes to search for this network of people. And then all of a sudden, serendipitously, I turned around and there they were in this community. They all showed up and it was incredible. And I lean on it all the time, and I want women here to feel like they can, and to also know that no matter where they are in their journey, they can jump in and they have something to contribute from day one, whether that's domain experience that they can add in terms of, I have questions about how this applies to healthcare because we have these specific problems, or if they're on the other end of the spectrum and have AI expertise. It's being able to combine those things that really makes it special, which is why it is at its core community first.
Yeah, and just to pounce a little bit more on that domain expertise, because we realized this was something else of a revelation, that we were focusing on non-technical, typically mid-career women, non-binary individuals, and because they're non-technical, they have a lot of domain expertise, and where Helen's saying I'm gone through that journey, I'm that example, and it really was this pulling together of all my domain expertise in the public sector, the tech sector, startup life, right? Where I was like, why isn't somebody solving for this? This is so obvious. Why isn't somebody doing it? And then you realize, oh, damn, you're the one that's supposed to solve for it.
Yeah, why not us?
Why not us? Right, exactly. And so And so that's been another revelation, is that's who I'm looking for in these next iterations of women defining AI, is who has that experience and that expertise, and they just don't know that they're a company builder yet. They don't know that they're an app builder or a technology builder or a company builder yet, and that's exciting.
That's super exciting. And I think it's so relevant given if someone is in the US, I think there is this like increasing sentiment where folks feel someone has to do something, who's going to do something, and really, can we empower people to say, no, you can do something. You have the power to do something, whether you're technical or not, and AI can help.
Yeah.
So, you all alluded to My Town AI, which came out of Women Defining AI. I have been a part of some of your modules, and the custom GPTs that I built in the programs actually have been saving me consistently 30 minutes to an hour every week. So it's been awesome. I am curious if there are other examples that you are open to share from the community of what folks have been building that really exemplify what you're looking to do here.
Well, before we do, Julia, I would love for you to describe like one of the GPTs that you shared in the community.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a sales leader, and I have direct reports and a larger sales team that report to me. And every week I write up motivational posts in Slack, encouraging to think through sales methodologies to get them excited. And so what I did with my custom GPT is I fed it some information, if people are familiar with sales, about the Challenger sale, the Jolt effect, MedPick, different things like that. And then I asked it to basically talk like me, which is a lady who works in sales. I said, it should not be a sales bro. It should leverage quotes from 90s movies like Clueless and Legally Blonde, which I really like, and I like to quote. It should not make references to sports because I don't know sports at all. And those are like typical things that happen in sales. So what actually ended up happening is I prompt it pretty much 1 to 2 times a week, tell it what I want it to say, and it writes these incredible posts. And now I feel like I've just given away my secret sauce, but like helps me a lot, and everyone's always complimenting me on these great posts. It's really
Great movie choices, by the way.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to edit the quotes because they're like super inappropriate, but
You have to make it suitable for work.
right.
Yeah, I'll tell the story of one of the first cohort of learners in the community that were really truly my guinea pigs, because I didn't know what I was building in terms of a projects program or a cohort or module or anything. It originated as a January 30 Gen AI projects challenge. And I was like, let's do 30 days of this. And so I was building every day before the day before, because I owed a video and a lesson and a project. Anyway, kudos to that first group of about 12 or 15 women who stuck with me for 30 days. One of the participants, she was a former chief strategy officer. So, as the role implies, like not on the engineering side. And she did all of our projects. And then at the end of it, extrapolated like an idea of her own to basically build an automation where at home, for many of the moms who have chest freezers for various reasons, you end up with this like deep inventory of frozen things that you actually have no clue what it is. You're not good about just like what's at the very bottom and how to cook with it and meal plan with it. And so she created, first of all, she like did a deep clean of her chest freezer, inventoried everything into like a Google Sheet, and then connected that system into an automation and a Siri shortcut, so that when she was meal planning, she could go and say, I'm going to use this in my chest freezer because I have it available. It's inventoried now. And then automatically click buttons to update the inventory as she went. And so there's like a very personalized solution built for one of the series of mental load problems that we have as moms. And she did it all on her own with the help of AI and just inspiration from a lot of the things that we did in the community, which was kind of incredible. But yeah, that was one of the early, like, she built this kind of examples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
I've always been so impressed with the little one-off things that just make such a difference in somebody's life. I remember one of our members had a whole new, dietary plan that they had to adhere to because for a family member, and it was causing her a lot of stress. And all she could think of is like, oh my goodness, I have to go to the store and I have to find all these new things. It's overwhelming. And goodness gracious, if she didn't upload her list up into ChatGPT and say, can you tell me where all the aisles in Safeway that these ingredients are? And when I read that, I just how cool that was. Like, those are really cool things that I've just loved seeing come out of the community.
Yeah, my favorite channel is definitely share demos and examples.
Yeah.
Because of this, right? Because actually what's really interesting is that Gen AI is in many ways hard because you don't know what you don't know. And you're kind of figuring out what are those use cases, what are the things that you can do, while at the same time extremely accessible because it just uses natural language and text to do something. So it's this really weird technology. And the Share Demos and Examples channel is one of those areas where you get kind of the mix of super technical stuff of nerds like me who are doing random experiments to just like really good use cases where someone's like, man, I hadn't thought about that. I'd only been using it to write my emails. Like there was nothing else. And that sharing and iterating and remixing is so helpful and valuable. And we see it all the time in the community.
Switching gears a little bit, Helen, you and I first got to know each other when we were working at Slack, and you at Slack founded Future Forum, which is a think tank focused on the future of work. You wrote a best-selling book on the topic, and I think you're very much considered a thought leader in the future of work space. I am curious about how do you think about AI impacting the future of work? I don't just mean agents taking over our help desk and things like that. I'm curious to know, like, how do you see this impacting the future of work?
There are so many different ways that generative AI is going to impact the future of work, or, honestly is impacting work right now, that it's really hard to have any like one specific thing. But I'll give a couple examples. I think in general, what we started with the Future Forum is, when we had flexible work as sort of top of mind and we were trying to figure out remote work policies and what this all meant, one of the first things that my co-founders and I talked about was the need to redesign work, right? And so I'll give you tangible examples. One is I was at this talk in a webinar and a question came up. Well, there are more and more, AI generated resumes. How can we tell what is AI generated and what is not? What is your recommendation? And I was like, in 2025, we should just make the blanket assumption that AI is being used in every single resume that you see. Given that, rather than trying to detect whether it is AI or not, what are different ways that you actually want to assess candidates beyond looking at their resume anymore, right? Because I assume that they're all semi-AI generated, or at least some version of it has been edited. What I might do now if I was running Future Forum still is actually create a whole host of varying writing samples and perspectives and degrees of taste and personalities and all that. And I would ask them for their thoughts on like what was good and bad across all of those pieces. What I want to see is judgment and taste. and the ability to think critically about what they're reading. And that is actually harder to do with AI. You could prompt it, but that you would need to know specifics to prompt. And it's a much better gauge of what we would want in this new age of AI versus just the pure skill of being able to generate an article. And I've talked to a lot of engineering leaders that have been thinking the same for coding, right? Not just evaluating someone for coding skills outright, but maybe it's code reviews and their ability to like really think critically about the code that they're seeing, how that fits into the bigger picture, and you know, how to streamline it, etc. So again, like I think that you can take these micro examples and think across all of the different types of things you do at work, compositions of teams, and take a step back and think about how it is different given that we will be in a world where everyone's using AI, we will have agents, we will have these tools that are very, very powerful. And if you assume all of those things are true, like work looks really, really different on the other end.
And ironically, you know, everyone worries about AI removing the human factor, right? The human touch in all of this. But what it might do, like in this resume example, is it might actually force different human interactions, right? Because if now I'm assessing, which I probably should have always been doing, but if I'm really trying to get at the critical thinking of this person, I might have to implement more, you know, human facing interactions or different tools in order to get at that. So I'm actually really interested to see what it enhances in terms of human interactivity, because we're forced to look at work differently, like Helen says.
Yeah, I completely see that. And I think also when you even think about how education is changing, I think the conversation around critical thinking, prompting is very much coming up early and often as well in order to train the future workers.
Yeah, I'm cautiously very optimistic about the future of education for that reason. I tend to be an optimist about tech, but I went to Caltech undergrad, so fairly technical school in SoCal, and have stayed in touch with some of my favorite professors. And I remember coming back and visiting a couple of years back, and we would just have this ongoing conversation about the loss of teaching critical thinking in schools, even for students that were coming to a top institution like Caltech, that it felt like we were no longer teaching how to problem solve. We were teaching just facts and textbooks and all of that. And I think that now probably one of the most like interesting things about this technology is that it's making technical skills a lot easier, but actually some of the like more what Nichole coins as like power skills, some of the more human, right, critical thinking, empathy, communication skills, etc., are more important than ever, and we have to find different ways to integrate that into our teaching. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed that we stop just teaching to a test and start helping folks think critically, think more creatively. So when you imagine the success for women defining AI 5 years from now, can you share what that looks like? And I know that sometimes this can be a really challenging question, and you all just shared that you didn't even know what this was going to look like when you started this. So just kind of curious, do you have any ideas of what it could be, or in an ideal situation where you want it to go?
So early on, we were approached with all kinds of different ideas, and I think like now that we're a couple of years in, one of the things that I get excited about is creating this ecosystem, if you will, of, it has different facets. It has our courses, and it meets people where they are. And then we also have these, you know, build out in the wild, what we're coining our build together events, where folks, women, non-binary individuals can build out there, and it's not got the same bro-y type of feel of, you know, like a traditional hackathon. So I think about our courses, I think about those, our build togethers, and then I think about, well, how do you close the loop on that, and you create some sort of an organization, a syndicate, angels, VCs that are actually investing directly into women-led AI companies, right? So I think about all those things. It's a lot. At the same time, it's like, how do you really effectuate change and make sure that we are getting more of those non-technical domain expertise, thinking about solving really good problems. And I always pull on this example of winning the third place at the TED AI hackathon. That idea, and again, we have a whole story of how many times we connected with them and were denied, and at the last minute it's like, oh, okay, go ahead and come on in, and we won third place based off an idea that needed solving, which was calls being picked up by the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You're not going to get a problem solved like that with your traditional tech bro circles. That required a woman, it required experience, and that so to create the ecosystem to support other ideas like that, that's maybe someday what Women Defining AI becomes.
My biggest dream for Women Defining AI, I don't know what the time frame is, but my biggest dream for Women Defining AI is that we accelerate an entirely new generation of builders into this world. An entirely new makeup of who builds and creates. One of the most salient things in my life that brought me to tech was seeing how technology enables people to shape and solve the world around them. And I was like, this is amazing. And why is not everyone trying to do something here? Because I think it's incredible. And that's what it felt like at the beginning of Silicon Valley, when I first came up to the Bay in the early days. And we've sort of, in many ways, have lost a bit of that originating ethos over the decades or so. And if there was anything that I want badly back, is that feeling that anyone can shape and change their communities, their lives, and the world around them. That is my biggest dream for Women Defining AI. To get there, I think if I looked back at the work that we're doing and what success looks like, it's to find a way to grow the scale and impact of how we inspire women to get started no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing right now, that you can start anywhere, anytime, and to create the support system for them to collaborate and find ways to make that happen. Because like that chatbot lunch and learn example, all I knew was that if we got a group of really smart women together in a room, that it was very likely that we were going to figure it out. And the group proved me right. And that is true time and time again. When I mentor women especially who are on the fence about getting started on a new role or a new idea, company, the first thing I ask them is if you had a boss in a job who gave you this gigantic new project that was you didn't know what to do, you've never done it before, highly ambiguous, what just fell in your lap? There would be no question. You would figure it out, right? Every incredible women in my network, every member that I've met so far, I have high trust that something drops in their lap and they're just gonna figure it out. But when we have to trust that we can do that for ourselves, when the choice is our own, we don't believe that for some reason. And sometimes you just need a friendly reminder that time and time again before, you've done it. Like, everyone has done some really badass things. And sometimes it's just about being unafraid to do it and trust ourselves as much as everyone around us trusts us. So, I don't know if that totally answers the question, but that's kind of when I think about the thing that we're building, the thing that keeps us here and excited about all of the programs that we're launching, all of the members that we're meeting and connecting with, like that is it.
I think that rings true on a number of levels. I think we are socialized and conditioned to believe that if we are not an expert in something, that it's maybe not our area to go into. And I think that is particularly true in the technical space. But as you've shown us both, that we can all absolutely do this. We can all absolutely build. So for listeners who are really inspired by the conversation, what's one concrete action that they can take to get involved in Women Defining AI or to get involved in the mission?
Join the community. I mean, that's one very concrete step, is to join the community and just start.
And how do you join the community?
Oh, you go to www.womendefiningai.com.
Yes.
Upper right-hand corner, memberships and Gen AI courses.
Love it. Cool. All right. Anything else that you all want to share?
Just that I'm really excited for this podcast this year. I think I had posted it when you all were soliciting guest interviewers for the first time. And in 2025 planning with Nichole, one of the first things I said was, I think it would be great to do a podcast. I don't want it to be another AI podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that there are already all these stories of the experts, the people who have been in AI forever, the 1% of the 1%. And like, the rest of the world has interesting stories, whether it ranges from, man, I cannot move the boulder up the mountain of AI and AI at work, and nobody wants to do it. We're blocked from even using the tool, or I'm struggling with getting started for these reasons. I have all of these hesitations, to like your own story, Julia. Those are all the stories along this spectrum and this journey that I think we don't get to hear. Real people and real experiences with every facet of how this crazy technology is changing our lives and work. And that, I think, I'm most excited to hear. I just want to, every conversation I've had with members has been so fun and such a learning experience that I'm hoping that we get more of that out to the world for more women to get inspired to get started.
Heavy plus to that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. If you have a suggestion to any of the listeners, that could be you, about a woman who's defining AI, that we should host on the podcast. We'll leave instructions on how to nominate them. Thank you all so much, and let's go define AI for the future of our world.